Hello everybody, back again to take a look at this Perses carrier refit again. What we're looking at right now is the original, and after kind of redoing this section, I decided I wanted to take a hard look at the side of the ship going all the way back to here. And I was taking a look at the original, and I'm not completely 100% on the body lines that it had. And one thing I was looking at was that I have this particular angle here, and then it comes down again with a different angle, and there's kind of like some indentations out in this area. And then it kind of sweeps across here, comes back up with the same angle that it went down at across the hangar front area, and then it splits up into something very different over here. And I was thinking, well, maybe I could try to get the lines looking better on the side of the ship without making any major modifications. So, on the revision, first thing I did here is I changed the body line. I matched this same angle coming down on this part, and I had a little deco thingy in the corner, which used to be right over here. Left the gun and the flight deck mostly the same, but I did change this angle with some different blocks. So this is now a 45-degree angle rather than the 22.5 degree angle. And then moving on through, what I was also looking at, I was thinking, hey, it's nice to have this thin, like, strip going across here kind of uniformly. As you can kind of see it does sort of go across here as well. But I wanted to exploit that a little bit more. So as in changing this angle to come back up at the same angle it went down at, added a little more, excuse me, a little more fluff there, and kind of smooth this out just ever so slightly, but it's virtually the same. And then I wanted to rebuild this front section and this out-of-date landing gear kind of thing, which also needs to go down another block. Now, that's something I didn't mention on the last video, is there was some complaints that this thing sat so low to the ground, especially at the time there was no such thing as retractable landing gear. So I always built these little areas to kind of conceal the landing gear so it didn't look so out of place. On this one, now that we have retractable landing gear, I wanted to get the ship off the ground a little bit higher. So a good extra block. So this one actually hangs down one block lower than the old thruster. But then I got to match the front. Now on the front, this is where I'm at right now. I radically changed the body line here as well. Something I didn't like about this ship is right after the hangar, it kind of cut in quite a bit and then went up at a pretty severe angle. And I remember this cutting down potential interior space too, and this area was fairly costly to build despite it having no real good room in it or anything like that. Costly as in it used a lot of blocks and it really didn't accumulate to anything good for interior space. So at this part here, now this is a little bit experimental. I don't know if I'm going to fall through exactly with what I'm doing here, but the idea is to have almost like a frame, like this was like some kind of ATV or something, and then out in this area I'm building out these new feet, but I'm going to try to, they're not going to be uniform like this or just straight. It's going to be a little bit more wedge shaped, just a little bit. Now one thing I got to do though is the landing gear need to be another block lower than what it is yet. And then I'm also going to probably have to make some changes to the front door too, so it goes down another block, or the elevator, or I'm sorry, the ramp to it should go down another block or so too. I'll have to make sure all that lines up. But by making these little subtle changes, it's not really increasing the cost of the ship whatsoever. It's smoothing out the side so it looks a little more uniform, I think. It is a refit, it is getting updated, it's going to look like the same ship, but if you start looking closely, it's like it's a different model. You know, so that is the goal, and I do have to finish up this area. And I did make some partial video on doing a little bit of this. I did not release that yet, and I might do that yet, or just collect a few more and maybe put together like more of a high-speed thing. It takes a while to do all this stuff. I was just kind of doing like a lot of planning and trying to figure out, hey, what could I do to this existing ship to change it a little bit and keep it about the same. And I like the changes. I think it's got a smoother body line. It looks a little more uniform together, and keeping these two blocks on the top kind of going across here smoothly all the way to the front, I think was kind of a bonus too. It doesn't break it up quite as bad as what I was doing over here. So that is the state of the ship. I haven't done too much else to it besides get this rear thruster textured. Here, let me get some better lighting going on here. So everything's kind of coming along. Not sure about my little caution things here. I was using a new block, and if you texture one side, it textures the other side. And I just wanted the caution over here where the this window is, which lines up to these ramps in the hangar, or these stairways in the hangar. And I was just kind of working that area out a little bit. Also, I dumped in another new block, and this block is unusual. It's kind of like it's half round. It doesn't really have a counterpart block to it in the new block selection. So I was thinking, you know, since I got this one, do they got one that maybe like turns out or smooths in or something like that to go with it? No, there's not really any other blocks that go with it. But what I found this to be very useful for is many times before I would use like the large cylinder block to make like a pipe. Trying to see if I got anything like this over here. And sometimes I would run that right above a room. Well, what this allows you to do is have that with a solid bottom on it, and it looks about the same. So I've got the same block over here, and it looks like it's just a regular cylinder block, but it's not. It's actually that same block, and it has a flat back on it, which is very nice for the interior. In the process of doing this, I did move these hangar doors out by one block. As you can see inside, I had to kind of cut that area out. It makes virtually no difference on the inside, just it's one block bigger right there. So, yeah, so it's coming along. There's a lot left to do, and I got to finish up this part. I don't think I'm going to make too many major changes to the front of the ship. I did modify this part a little bit. I took this ramp, and as you can see, the old front, it had these blocks here, and it kind of had this flat surface and another flat surface, and then your angle. And then in the inside here, I pretty much had that. So I didn't do much here. I left these same wedge-shaped blocks. I tried something else, and I actually liked the original better. I added a little lip across the front here and replaced a couple of these blocks over here with the spange block. Yes, it's a spange block. And that helps a little bit, just a little bit of a curve. So, yeah, that's about it for now. Believe it or not, this redoing the side, actually, probably spent a good 2-3 hours on that. Trying to make it right. I haven't textured this yet, so it's a little plain at the moment. Or, well, I added a couple textures, but it's not fully textured. And once I get these front landing feet in and looking the way I think they probably ought to look, I'd be real happy. And that pretty much covers the exterior of the ship. One last little detail is the original ship had these blocks on the side here. So I just added for detail. I mean, it's not like it's doing anything for you, but I wanted a little bit more something there. It looked a little too plain without anything. So now with some new blocks available, I did it a half block size and kind of made this little smoother line across side, which I think it looks a little bit more appropriate. It's not quite as tall, and I extended this out all the way up to the front of the runway. I do have to put a couple guns back. I removed a couple guns over here temporarily when I was messing with stuff, but yeah, they're going to go back. So that's another thing too, as in gun placement and everything else, I don't really plan on modifying that. It seemed to work pretty good on the original design, and if it's not broken, don't fix it. So probably leave most of that the same. So the next part, once I get this section done and the rest of the body over here textured, I've got to address this area over here where the thruster's attached to the body. I'm not liking what I got there right now. It's too squarish. And so I'm going to try to do some kind of like angled lines that kind of connect it and make it look a little better. I had something like that here. I had this like little body line that went across the back of the old thrusters. And just that little break up there, I think a little stuff like that helps a lot. I'm going to try to do something similar over here, but it might be a little bit different than the original. As in the back portion of this, right now I don't really see any major changes. I'm probably going to replace these top blocks with something else. Some of those newer blocks, and maybe take a look at these areas a little bit. Well, that's just part of going through the body and getting it all revved up for, being a new ship. That's still an old ship. Yep. And the next part will be diving into the interior, getting new storage in, and probably lighting and sensors. At the time when I built this ship, I understood sensors to a very very small amount, and I did not know how to link up two sensors together to cover a large space. So I had these hanger light switches like on the front and then another one in back, and there's separated lights and this and that, and that doesn't need to be that way anymore. And as you can see with me chopping the hanger apart, there is a little bit more room over in these areas too, and I'm thinking that would be a nice opportunity to either get in some deconstructors or something there, or honestly it didn't need 8 regular constructors either, so probably I probably ought to do that here and keep them uniform. So there'll probably be 6 constructors, and on each side there'll be a deconstructor as well. Might as well get that in. As in these thrusters, they do, because of the super size of these things and the fact that these thrusters are not, or these pods are not quite as far out this time, they do touch to the interior of the ship right in here. Pretty far out of the way though, but I will probably have to wall this off over here and make sure that you don't get burnt when you get close to this area. And fill in a few more blocks on the sides here. So that is the state of it. Just more body work for now. But I think when it's all said and done, it should look like a true, nice, new version of the ship. But it's totally not, doesn't not look much different than the original until you start looking closely and seeing all these little changes and stuff. And yeah, very happy with how it's coming out so far, especially having the new blocks and also being able to put deco blocks on things. I guess I could have in the past too. They just with the new patch, they allowed you to use this deco set on bases finally, which is very cool. In fact, on the space station up there, I haven't even thought about adding any of that yet, so I might have to get some deco blocks on there. But then again, I wanted to release this for A9 now, so I probably shouldn't do that. In fact, I'm going to have to revert back on versions of the game so I can release the station. And yeah, that about covers it for today. I do want to, I'm going to start recording the continued work that I do on the body over here and get out a video if you want to see that actually being done. This is a lot of messing around and trying to get the planning down, and trying to get it to look right with the existing shape and new dimensions of like lowering the feet, and it's tricky. So it's been a slow process, a lot of thinking. Probably 3/4 of the time I'm thinking about what to do, and 1/4 of the time I'm actually like changing blocks around. As in size class, it's using the new blocks, it does jump size class up some. Now I'm at 851 currently, and we got a 17-hour and 46-minute production time. And I've been kind of comparing this all the time to the existing model. And this one was finished at 891 and had a 20-hour and 21-minute production time. So currently, the new one is cheaper, but the new one is lacking a lot of stuff yet. I got to get the storage in, I got to get some more parts in on the interior again. As in size class, I do expect this to be a size class 10 when I'm done, and it's not because of price. I anticipate that this ship will be a little bit cheaper than this one, if I'm guessing correctly. The size class isn't going to come from price. It's just going to come from using newer blocks and little trim blocks and things that don't ramp up the cost of the ship, but do increase the size class of the ship. So I believe it will be sitting somewhere in the low 10 range when I'm said and done. And I'm just anticipating that I'm going to want to put in some fancier blocks on the interior, and maybe a little bit better lighting in places and things like that don't cost you much, but just shoot that size class up fast. But it will not go over size class 10. And I'm not doing what I did with the Cerberus. Now the Cerberus PSV was one of my original ships, and I freaked on making a different model of it. Let me get that spawned a minute. It's been a while since I took a good look at this ship. So yeah, original Cerberus PSV. This one's slated to get revamped too, but I don't want to do what I did with it on the first time. So I took this ship and I turned it into a totally different ship, really. I mean, it follows the same body lines more or less, and looks and certainly looks similar to the original, but this was a size class 5, and this shot up to a strong size class 10. Granted, it's a big ship. It's got a lot more space in it, a lot more landing deck. The hangar's crazy. More or less a double deck hangar. Excessive storage, of course, pre-Alpha 9 storage. And I spent a lot of time on this ship, and I don't know if people really liked it. Maybe I went overboard on it. It's a little too big, a little too expensive. I didn't want to hold back on this ship when I was building it, though. It just had to have everything, and I wasn't really cared about cost. I started to care about cost right towards the end when I realized that I could easily run into size class 11 with it, and I did not want to do that. So that's not what I'm doing with the Perses. So the Perses is going to be tried and true to the original, and even the relatively same color. Now what I did do is I took the base gray and I upped it just a smidgen in its brightness. So it's very close. It's hard to notice the difference. And then I'm planning on doing those alt colors, very subtle alt colors, and just kind of going over this whole ship and kind of changing a few like metal pieces so there's slightly different tint. I'm going to give it a little more authenticity. Okay, well, later on today, I plan on, once I get a little bit of time, I plan on trying to finish up this front area and make modifications. I'm going to record that and get a video out on that. and try to get that working. And once that's done, it's interior time. And other than that, I got to say, I mean, not that I haven't put in like about 6, 7 hours on this, but it's coming along pretty quickly so far. We'll see what the interior leads to, though. Plan on making a few cosmetic changes to the interior, but the layout is not changing, and I'm going to keep pretty much everything intact on how it is. It's just a little prettier stuff. I've got custom colors to work with now. Got a whole lot of new blocks and deco things that I can do, so I'm going to try to dress it up. I believe also at the time when this ship was released, there was no such thing as a spotlight. And I've been using spotlights quite a lot on newer model ships, and you can really get some better lighting going on with that. Especially a combination of both. If you have some spotlights and maybe like a regular light, they can kind of offset each other a little bit, where you get even a better looking light area. All right, well, you guys have a good day. Might have a second video out today, a little later, once I get this part going here. Thanks a lot.